3 weeks in, I do think that you can make the legitimate case that the Eagles are the best team in football. It seems like right now they're one of the top 2 teams on power rankings with the Dolphins, which makes sense. Those are the only 2 undefeated teams left in the NFL.
Psych!
Right now, Philly looks pretty unstoppable. They absolutely crushed the Commanders in week 3. As a Washington fan, that was very, very tough to watch. And I will also say the score makes it seem like it was a lot closer of a game than it actually was. It finished 24-8, but the Eagles were up 24-0 at the half. The Commanders' offensive line was awful, and Philly had 9 sacks. Wentz struggled, and Washington just couldn't get anything going at all. DeVonta Smith tore shit up too. He had 169 yards and a touchdown, and A.J. Brown had 85 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it is just insanely difficult to stop an offense with those 2 as the focal points. Jalen Hurts looked incredible, throwing for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was just an overall great day for the Eagles. But let's also be real here. I mean, it was against Washington.
Commanders.
By far, I think the Eagles' most impressive win this season so far has come against the Vikings. I feel like there were some pretty high expectations from Minnesota this year after bringing in Kevin O'Connell, and there being this expectation of an offense tailor-made for Kirk Cousins. Well, Kirk looked like shit in Philadelphia. Shocker, it was on Monday night. I mean, he is just awful in prime time. We made a video about it last week, so make sure to check that out after this. Kirk ended up throwing 3 picks, and that Vikings team is currently 2-1. But the Eagles just absolutely hammered them 24-7. Hurts threw an interception, but did complete 26 of 31 passes for 333 yards and a touchdown. Plus, he rushed for 2 touchdowns and over 50 yards. He was incredible. And I think that was when everyone was kind of like, hey, maybe the Eagles are for real, because Philly was good in week 1, but it was against the Lions. Detroit is 1-2 now, but they've been awful in recent years. The Lions are much better now than they have been. The offense has actually been one of the best in the league. That's the only game of the season where the Eagles defense has given up more than 1 touchdown, and it was a lot more. 5 touchdowns to be exact. Hurts wasn't great, I guessed, through the air. 18 of 32, completed for 243 yards, but he also rushed for 90 yards and a touchdown. But A.J. Brown went on an absolute tear in his first game as an Eagle with 155 yards. The Philly offense in general was just really good in week 1, and the defense still had to figure some things out, but I feel like in terms of the offense, that performance really gave them a lot of confidence to really start putting things together like we saw in week 2 and 3. I think you have to give the Eagles a lot of credit for what they've done this offseason. The biggest move, obviously, was trading for A.J. Brown. Let me be real here. I still don't quite understand why the Titans traded him, but Philadelphia got him for an 18th overall pick, and he's been great. In 3 games, Brown has averaged over 100 yards per game and has 1 touchdown. I think that trade already has really proven itself. It gave Jalen Hurts good weapons, and it allowed the Eagles to see what he's truly capable of. It's hard to take a quarterback and say whether he's good or not when you haven't really given him the correct tools to succeed yet. Plus, one of the biggest benefactors to it is DeVonta Smith. He's a guy that I do truly believe is a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, and I think he proved that last season. He recorded over 900 yards just as a rookie. Now, playing alongside A.J. Brown, he's one of the best number 2s in the league, and that's what's going to happen. Corners and defenses are going to focus on A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown is that good, and now DeVonta Smith kind of just gets to sneak under the radar, like T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle. Those are 2 other guys that I think just aren't number 2 wide receivers, but because of their situation, they are. They are all good enough to be a number 1, but that is just how good the guy in front of them is, and that's the case with DeVonta too. The Eagles have just done a fantastic job. They drafted Jalen Hurts, made him the starter, and have done a great job building around him, and he's looked like a completely different dude this season. Last year, he did show some promise, throwing for over 3,100 yards and 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Of course, he was a menace on the ground too, with 10 scores and almost 800 yards, but he's been even better in 2022. Hurts was even just named the NFC Offensive Player of the Month. He's done it all. He has the highest passer rating of anyone in the NFC. His 3.3 yards per attempt is number 1 in the league and leads all quarterbacks with 3 rushing touchdowns. Already, he has 7 total touchdowns, to only 1 interception. He looks incredible, and it seems like he's finally turning into everything the Eagles hoped he could become when they chose him over Carson Wentz. Clearly, the Eagles made the right decision benching Wentz for Hurts, and that was made very clear in Week 3 with Philly just absolutely crushing Wentz. Philly won a Super Bowl not that long ago, and it's hard to remember now, but Week 4 is going to present another pretty big revenge game, and that is against Doug Peterson, that Super Bowl winning head coach who is now in Jacksonville. He had 3 winning seasons in 5 years in Philly, but in 2020, he was 4-11-1 and ended up benching Wentz for Hurts in that season. After the year, the Eagles hired Nick Sirianni, a guy that really I'm just so happy for. I mean, he's been all over the place with the Chiefs, Chargers, and then he was the OC for the Colts before he got the job in Philly. I know I was definitely a bit critical of the hiring when the Eagles got him. I didn't fully believe in him at the time, and I still can't believe that Philadelphia went 9-8 last year. He has done a good job with this team, and that was one hell of an accomplishment for Sirianni to have a winning record with this team. He is a little odd. Sirianni made draft prospects play rock, paper, scissors, and he had players watch videos of a hot dog eating contests, but whatever the hell he's doing, it's working because the Eagles are 3-0 and they're one of the best teams in football. I've been saying all offseason that the Eagles were going to be a good football team. I've thought all along that they were going to win the NFC East, and right now, it's really starting to look that way. Of course, a big part of that has to do with the injury to Dak Prescott, but don't forget that the Cowboys looked like shit in Week 1 when Dak was playing. Now, with him out, Dallas has won 2 in a row with Cooper Rush. So, honestly, who knows how good the Cowboys can be? The Giants have been a surprise to some degree, pull out a surprise win over the Titans and beat the Panthers, who are, to be frank, kind of ass. Then the Giants beat the Cowboys. The Commanders haven't been good, like at all. That was made very clear in Week 3 against Philly. It just seems like the Eagles have an easy road to the playoffs, and the talent is clearly there. Now, I think that really turns the big question into this. How good can the Eagles be this year? Sometimes hype gets a little too big, or teams in the NFC East look better than they actually are because of the teams they face. But I don't think that's the case here. From every measure, I think the Eagles are a good football team and can make some serious noise this year, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs. I think Philadelphia is the best team in the NFC right now, and I think that could last the rest of the season. And honestly, there doesn't seem to be anybody too scary on the schedule anytime soon. The Jaguars in Week 4 is kind of an interesting one because this is a Jags team that is so different from years past. But after all that, it's teams I just don't think too much of. Cardinals, Cowboys, Steelers, Texans, Commanders, and then the Colts. Then the Eagles play the Packers, which, as long as Aaron Rodgers is still slinging it, is going to be a tough game. The Eagles have admittedly been blessed with a very easy schedule this season, and they're still going to slip up at some point. That really is just the NFL, but let me make this very clear. The Philadelphia Eagles are a real Super Bowl contender.